I appreciate the
Don't
convo.
run away. Don't run away.
I'm not
A lot of
Yeah,
I'm
like
not running away, buddy. I
you
feel
are
like we've
running
covered
away.
all of
You
our
are
bases and we
running
have a
away.
lot of people
You
waiting,
jump
okay?
on the question.
They made it a political issue and banned doctors from using it. There's no reason to ban it. It's
I'm
a
going to look
safe
this
method.
up. Oh, what's this? The first thing I see, a fact check saying that you're wrong.
Well,
I
no,
laugh,
you're
my
right.
dude, but that's not how humor works. Because Nick
Yeah, you're right.
Fuentes is making jokes to mask certain beliefs so that dumb like you can then get up here and say, "Oh, oi, oi, he was just joking, lol." How you doing?
Earlier, you were talking about how Biden's COVID response was so much better than Trump's. I'm curious what you're really giving credit Biden for. Trump pushed with the FDA to get early approval for the vaccinations. He worked to fund research into vaccinations with Project Warp Speed.
Yeah, what some of the stuff, don't get me wrong, some of the stuff Trump did as president was fine. It was more that Trump, for a long period of time, even though he knew the virus was coming, pretty much did nothing. I think that overall, I mean, I would have to go back and look at the exact specifics. It has kind of been a while now since the election. But I know that overall Biden is, he has much more of a competent mindset working with the World Health Organization, working with professionals to kind of get this thing under control. I'm not
Why do you
necessarily.
think we should work with the World Health Organization, who deliberately withheld facts about COVID early in the pandemic?
What
that
facts?
could have changed the
What
the game?
facts?
The World Health Organization was putting out disinformation that COVID couldn't be transmitted person to person. Whenever they knew back in November.
How do you know that they knew? Are you sure this isn't just the trial and error and process of asking questions and learning new things as science progresses?
I'll look up a source after we get done talking here and DM it.
Because what oftentimes happens here, yeah, because I would have to look up sources too. I don't have everything in front of me here either. But oftentimes what happens is we see wrong information at first, and then the information changes, and then that's extrapolated into some kind of a conspiracy. So a good example of that is what Fauci did with the mask thing. When Dr. Fauci said, "Don't wear masks," I think that was really lame because he was lying. In reality, masks were probably effective, and he was kind of keeping that from the public because he didn't want those masks to sell out because health professionals needed them. Now, that's not good. I don't agree with that. I don't like that he lied. However, to go from that, right, and then to allege some kind of conspiracy or some kind of malintent, that's when you kind of lose me there.
To go back to the initial point, though, what has Biden's response been with COVID other than, get your vaccine, wear a mask?
Yeah, I mean, that alone is pretty good. I would have to look up some more specifics. My main thing is just that Biden's going to continue working with the professionals around him, like the World Health Organization, like the CDC, like Dr. Fauci. I can look up some specifics later if you want, and we can go over point by point. But yeah, that's the main thing kind of off the top of my head.
I mean, that kind of sounds like what Trump's plan already was, though. So it's not anything.
So wasn't Trump literally pushing all sorts of falsehoods about hydroxychloroquine and all sorts of other things?
Hydroxychloroquine has been proven to be effective.
Are you talking about the study that was 200% effective?
No, I'm talking about a recent one. That's it.
Yeah. Did you read the study by any chance?
It's for patients who are on a ventilator.
Did you actually look at the study by any chance?
I glanced over it, but I didn't read it word for word.
Did you read the very, very top part that was in bold?
It was a couple weeks ago. Never read it.
Where it deliberately said that it was not peer reviewed and should not be used for any form of clinical guidelines.
Okay.
So it was not peer reviewed. It was not even verified to be a legitimate study at this point.
Okay.
So it hasn't been proven to work by any stretch of the measure. So again, we have Trump, right, who is spreading conspiracy theories about hydroxychloroquine and all kinds of other things.
It's been used for a variety of rheumatoid conditions for a long period of time, and it's a very safe medicine.
Hydroxychloroquine? It's been used for decades for other.
Why do you push back on that?
I'm not. I'm telling you right now that it's been used successfully for like it's like an anti-malaria drug, right?
Right.
It's used for other diseases. It's just not effective when treating COVID. We have way better long-term studies that even use.
Why do we have people banning doctors from using it though?
What do you mean banning doctors from using it? Using it for COVID? Probably because it's not been proven to work and it would violate the medical guidelines? I mean, that's off the top of my head. That's like seems like the most rational answer, doesn't it?
To ban doctors from practicing medicine? No.
We're not talking about practicing medicine. They're saying maybe doctors aren't supposed to be prescribing this one certain drug for COVID-19, which has been not proven to work.
And we didn't have anything else that was proven to work at the time either. But we were getting promising results from hydroxychloroquine, and it became a political issue.
No, but we weren't. We were not getting promising results. The best study that we had, I believe, used a proper control group where they took patients that all had COVID-19. Some were given hydroxychloroquine, some weren't, and they found virtually no improvement. Some fared worse. No one fared better. It was either neutral or worse. So no, it has not been proven to work. People, it's funny because you're talking about being politicized. That's what you're doing with hydroxychloroquine. The only reason you even know about that study is because you saw it on wherever, Fox News or some conservative page or whatever. And I know that because I've been talking to my own family who are conservative, and they're talking about that study too. The only reason you know about that useless study that hasn't even been peer reviewed is because it's being politicized. Hydroxychloroquine is being politicized by the conservatives more than anything.
All right. National Library of Medicine. Do you take this as a good source?
Is this the 2005 one?
This was published in March 20th of 2020.
All right. Well, I'm not going to look through a bunch of sources right now on the AMA. I'm sorry, man.
Despite the small sample size, our survey shows that hydroxychloroquine treatment has significantly associated with viral load reduction, disappearance in COVID-19 patients, and is reinforced.
That's great. Yeah, there are probably some studies that's fine. There are some studies that are like very early on, like preliminary studies or whatever, that may have shown promising results. But when we actually have a better, bigger study with proper control groups where we take patients that don't have or that do have COVID, and then we give them, some of them hydroxychloroquine, some that don't, we're able to gauge the results, and it has not been shown to work. So I know that like maybe there are some studies here and there, like I don't know every study that you're going to cite. I don't, but I do know that the bigger and better studies have proven that hydroxychloroquine doesn't work. And the reason, I don't understand why you think that people, who is trying to hide the fact that hydroxychloroquine works? Like what? Like seriously, tell me who's doing this? Like why? What would be the point of that?
Okay, in states like Michigan, very blue states, whenever hydroxychloroquine was still being looked at, and it still is being looked at today for use in COVID, they made it a political issue and banned doctors from using it. There's no reason to ban it.
I'm going to look this up. Oh, what's this? The first thing I see, a fact check saying that you're wrong. So let me go ahead and look at this really quickly. Hold on. Hold on. Claim, Michigan governor banned hydroxychloroquine for use. It's false. Michigan's Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs released a memo in March asking for physicians and pharmacists not to stockpile hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine. The facts. A false post circulating on Facebook. All right, so yeah, it was false, my dude. So no, it hasn't even been banned. Even if it was, though, there literally could have been arguments for that. But I'm sorry, man. I think you should get out of the conservative bubble and try and challenge some of your beliefs there, man.
All right, Mr. Biden's plan for COVID has been so great, but does it differ from Trump's? Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Pepe.
Okay.
Really appreciate the question.
Hi, Hunter. Thanks for having this AMA.
How you doing?
Doing great, thanks. So I want to know your stance on abortion, if you're pro-life or pro-choice, and how that might clash with many of your other center-left positions.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. So like on a personal level, I am 100% pro-life. I would not ever want to get an abortion. However, I guess I would call myself pro-life because I am against abortion. However, I don't think that making it illegal is the answer to decreasing abortion rates. Does that make sense?
Right, and absolutely. And then could I ask for why you think abortion is something that you personally wouldn't do and probably wouldn't recommend to someone else if you're being consistent?
Sure. So, funnily enough, I know I'm going to tell everybody I'm vegan, but I recently went vegan, and a lot of it kind of comes down to sentience. And I know the go-to answer is that fetuses aren't sentient, and that's true, but fetuses have the potential, right, to be sentient. They are growing towards sentience. And for that reason, just like I wouldn't want to kill an animal that was sentient, I also wouldn't want to kill a fetus, which is the potential and future sentience.
Got it.
So yeah.
Yeah. So would you have claims like realistically, if you're aborting a fetus, it is the killing of an organism. You say that could achieve sentience after some time. Am I following that correctly?
Yes, and that's really why I consider that to be wrong.
Okay, but you consider it to be wrong, but you, at the same time, you hold the opposite view of it should remain legal because you're against, I suppose, government opposition on this?
Well, it's just that from what we've seen, they're just like banning abortion doesn't seem to decrease abortion rates at all.
Okay, all right. So if, for example, someone was doing this illegally, an illegal killing, also known as murder, for example, just because others are having unsafe abortions or illegal abortions at the same time, if you truly do believe this is an organism, a fetus, and taking it out of the body is killing it, how can you at the same time be okay with what effectively is, by your logic, a murder?
I mean, I'm not okay with it. That's why I'm against abortion, but making it illegal wouldn't decrease it. This, it might be like, if you want to call it murder, fine. But what this is it's different, right? This is like, it happens in the context of a medical procedure. It's a lot different than like somebody getting like on the street, shot down, gunned down, or whatever. So to make that comparison, I'm not sure if that's technically fair. We also have to recognize that the fetus, although the potential for sentience, is also in the woman's body. So that puts a whole slew of complications there as well. And that could actually risk another sentient life, right? The mother. So there are all kinds of like variations there and reasons that I don't think that comparison's that great. And again, I am against it, and that's why I want to actually provide birth control. I think that we can have a better healthcare system that would provide that. I think that would really help. And again, just we've seen, like there have been various states that have tried to ban abortions. You can look at it and you'll see that abortion rates don't go down, because I could just as easily flip that argument on you, right? And say, well, if you think abortion's wrong, why on earth would you want to do something that isn't going to fix abortion?
Yeah, well, what I could see from you is it's a bit of a utilitarian argument saying that, okay, I want it to remain legal because I don't want illegal or unsafe abortions taking place. But at the same time, you do oppose abortion itself. Realistically, are you more interested in the killing of a potential human, and I would say a human on its own, or are you more interested in efficacy? And if you are purely interested in efficacy rates and not the actual lives of these unborn children, what
would be your approach?
My approach for it is it is a human being and it is murder, and it should simply be seen as such. I understand.
So let's say that it's seen as such, but like if we know already that the state trying to ban abortion isn't going to actually fix abortion rates, then why would we want to do that? Wouldn't we want to do what would be actually, if you believe this to be a murder of a life, wouldn't you want to do what was shown to reduce that?
Make those murders legal? I don't think so. And
we're not necessarily saying legal. We're literally saying straight up that we can be providing birth control, and we will see a decrease in abortion. There have been multiple studies that show just when women have access to birth control, abortion rates decline. Imagine if everybody did. We would definitely see huge declines in abortion, as we already have. So I could just as easily flip this on you and say, you say it's killing a human being, then why on earth would you not want to push for what's been shown to reduce this? This is like saying, hey, there are people driving down the road and sometimes they're hitting people with their cars. Well, I just want to call it what it is. Okay, well, I want to actually put street lamps up so that people aren't driving in the dark. One's actually going to have a real life consequence, right? And then when you kind of are talking about just recognize it as this, recognize it as that, it comes off as more like moral grandstanding. Like we just want to say it's bad and then that's it.
Well, realistically, you can at the same time ban it and also provide contraception, provide education, whatever you may have.
But why?
The point is realistically,
because if you ban it, it's not going to actually help.
Are there any other positions that you're okay with murder because for whatever reason banning murder doesn't work? That's a ridiculous argument.
I mean, it depends on how we're kind of talking about this, right? If the only answer here, like, I mean, we have, for example, made murder illegal and it does still happen, right? So, like, you could just as easily make that argument, I guess.
Legalize the murder? I don't think so. Hunter, in the end, it comes down to when is it a person? And realistically, I'm going to let you answer.
Listen, wait. I don't have to answer that. I can agree with you there. But if we both believe that it is a person or the potential to be a sentient person, and we both want to see that killing reduced, then it only makes sense to go with a solution that shows to reduce it. You can go ahead and push and advocate for, I guess, what would you want to do? Overturn Roe v. Wade? Would that be your practical goal?
I don't think so. I don't think more murder in the short term is
okay, so let me explain. So if you got rid of Roe v. Wade, that would
your ends are simply legalizing what I think.
I'm not saying legalize it. I'm saying actually provide birth control to reduce it. So, for example, if we got rid of
birth control,
because I'm explaining. First of all, if we got rid of Roe v. Wade, okay, then that would just be left up to the states. So that you would still see plenty of abortion in California, in any liberal state, there would be a fuck ton of abortion, okay? And then for the states that banned it, you would see people crossing state lines to get an abortion. Second of all, the reason we shouldn't just ban it is because what happens when you ban it is you actually do increase unsafe abortions, which again, if you care about life, we're also talking about the life of the mother here. So then you're talking about putting a ban that doesn't even reduce abortion and only raises the risk of more life being lost. So your solution is pretty much just more death, and my solution is let's actually reduce death.
By making effectively murder illegal. So if you actually take a look at it, if you make it...
Say whatever you want, man, but at the end of the day, it's grandstanding. You're advocating for
No.
Yes, you're advocating let's overthrow Roe v. Wade and then call it murder so we can call it what it is. Okay, great. Cool for you. Keep virtue signaling, I guess. I'm actually advocating to make real changes, to actually see abortion rates decline.
By holding diametrically opposed oppositions and other center-left positions.
I think abortion's bad, and I want to reduce abortion, so I'm going with the most practical reason.
I don't buy it.
Wait, I think abortion's bad, right? I want there to be less abortion, so I'm going with what has been shown to reduce abortion. That is not... Call it what it is, buddy. Do what you say. What you want to do. Call it however you want. You're virtue signaling right now. This is the definition of it. You're saying it should be called murder. We should recognize it as murder. Okay, fine. There you go. Here you go. Wait. Okay, fine. I recognize it as murder.
Legally killing of babies? Well, what do you recognize?
Let's for the sake of this argument, I'll even concede that. Sure. Let's say it's murder. Okay, I want to reduce it. Well, let's see what's been shown to reduce it. In this case, it's...
I'm just not going to... I don't have common ground with you because I don't think murder under any circumstances would be okay, even if the ends justify the means, which you would still have to demonstrate.
First of all, I never even said it would be necessary. Wait, I think that you may have lost me a little bit there. Can you repeat that?
Maybe. Yeah, so again, I don't think murder, because in the end, it's an ends justify the means argument. And I don't think advocating for murder under any circumstances, even if...
I'm not advocating for murder. You are advocating for murder. You're the one advocating for murder right now. Your solution would lead to the...
You are citing illegal and unsafe abortions.
I'm sorry, you're right. Not murder, but more death. Murder's the wrong word there, but more death.
I understand that that's a little bit salacious.
Your solution would lead to more death. My solution would lead to less. It's that simple.
Short-term death justifying a potential for less long-term death.
What?
I don't buy it either. If
Statistically,
you allow it to be legal, you will have these children killed under some guise that, but I care about the mothers and I want to cite illegal and unsafe abortions taking place. I don't
no,
buy it.
I'm
I
not
don't think
citing it. I'm
short-term-
telling you
I
that
don't
if
think
you look in
short-term
these
murder
other,
is good for that.
you can look. I think it's in the country of Brazil. They banned abortion, and you actually saw abortion rates go up. It doesn't work. It doesn't play out the way that you want it to. I understand your thought process. Your thought process is very intuition based. It's very, well, if something is bad, make it illegal and it will stop. Duh. But that's not how it actually is going to work. That's not how it actually plays out. That's not actually how it plays out in the real world. When you ban abortion, you see more unsafe abortions take place, and you see ultimately more death. When you continue to keep it, when you continue to keep it
when you
legalized,
ban abortions, especially in Europe, which is I think a little bit of a better Western analog than Brazil, you'll actually
I can
see
point you
that
to states in the
do
U.S. that
carry
have done the
term
same.
more often, and the people who do decide to do things illegally is at a much lower rate. And if they do it illegal, guess what? They're doing an illegal act, and they're able to go ahead and
I would have to
not
look into
murder
that, but I
child.
also know that those European countries usually
I'd
have.
love to-
I
if you
also
want
know
to
that
talk
those
to me
European
later, I
countries
can
have
give you a link.
way better health care and are probably providing way better contraceptives, which is
Right,
one of the
you
solutions to decline
Right, you
to-
are. We agree.
to bring down abortion. But either way, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Absolutely. Contraception, fantastic. But thanks, Hunter. Thanks for listening to me. Have a great one.
Thank you, Carnamere.
Hi, Hunter. Thank you for coming and answering all these questions.
Yeah,
So, I just wanted to start off by asking who you thought were your most constructive critics when you were on the right, and who you consider to be your most constructive critics now that you're on the left.
My most constructive critic. I mean, I would probably have to say Vosh, right? Who's my most constructive critic now? I don't know. I my most constructive critic now. Yeah, I don't. I wish I could think of someone off the top of my head there, but no. Sorry, man.
Okay.
I don't think so. I know that kind of sounds cocky, but I can't think of
No,
anyone.
well, I can understand because, like, I mean, you've moved to the right now, so I could imagine, or sorry, to the left now, so I can understand why, having already moved, you can kind of look back and see. So maybe it's something you always kind of have to look back and see who your most constructive critic is, kind of after the fact.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I kind of brought it up because I would consider, probably not for you, but as far as understanding you, as well as watching your own content, one of your most constructive critics, or critics that I feel like doesn't just like strawman you or doesn't just attack you, but I feel like you're definitely going to disagree, is AJW.
I
And
knew you.
I guess
Why
this is what I
did
did
people
wanna
bring
kinda
him
ask, 'cause
up?
I know y'all had that exchange.
Yeah, the reason is I just watched him yesterday on Critical Race Theory. The guy is so fucking slippery. He gives the veneer of being good faith, but if you actually listen to what he's saying and how he's phrasing it, it's either just slippery, like it's twisting it around, or it's based on half truths. Like, for example, yesterday was talking about the I don't know how much content of his that you consume, but I guess, has he talked about the thing in California with critical race theory in the school districts?
Yeah, I think he has a series about critical race theory
Yeah,
in like
so-
different school districts.
So he brought that up in the debate yesterday in California, right? So he's like, it's already being put in this curriculum. Look at how bad it is, whatever. So I go and I look it up, right? And it was optional. It was an optional thing that some districts don't even have to do. Like, they can choose to do it if they want to, or choose not to do it. But he doesn't say that.
Well,
He tells half truths.
okay.
He's very, very slippery. So
Because I caught the CRT part only, so I don't know what he said after that. But the way that I understood what he was saying is that right now, basically, it's like an in-between phase where they've passed a law that they want this to be in the curriculum, but right now it's optional until they settle on like a set standard.
maybe he's
So I don't know
talking
if
about,
that's
maybe
what you're
he's,
referring to.
yeah, maybe he's talking about something different. Maybe these are different things, but I know that the one that I read, it looked like it had already been voted on and it was optional, and that was it.
Okay. All right. Well, I would just say I have consumed a good amount of his content, and like I said, maybe I'm being deceived because I know you've talked about that before.
Didn't you
that
see how
he is?
didn't you see how he represented what I said about David Dorn? Did you see that?
Oh yeah, I think I did saw that one. I think I saw it right when it came out, so it's been a little while since then.
He twisted
That
that. It
one,
made it
it's-
sound as if I was. He made it sound as if I was like actually shitting on David Dorn or something, when it was so clear and obvious what I was doing there.
Yeah, no, and see, that's the thing. So I don't want to make it sound like I think like he's perfect by any means, because I feel like most people are going to be trapped by their biases, and once they have an opinion, it's really hard to move them out of that opinion. So
Hmm.
I do think there's a certain amount of that. He, like the first video of you that I saw was him basically saying, if I'm not misremembering, that he felt like you started off in conservatism kind of the same way that I started off in leftism, kind of like factory set into it without like a strong grounding in the principles, just kind of, it kind of seemed right kind of thing. And I could be wrong about that, but that's how he seemed to present where you were coming from. And I think that's kind of colored his opinion, so that he almost doesn't think you were ever really conservative in the
So
same way I was probably never
even
on
if
the
that were
left.
true, then who cares? Even if he
No,
believes that I never had a strong understanding of anything when I was conservative, I think I have a pretty strong understanding of things now. So why does that matter?
no, I don't think it does matter as far as like what your actual opinions are now. I'm just saying like that might be coloring how he's having to interpret things when it's a little bit more questionable. So like the David Dorn thing, that could be the case. But I don't want to speak too much for him because I'm
No, I
sure I'm
understand.
misrepresenting him and you.
I just
So
really quickly will say the only engagements and experiences I've really had with him, right, are him on Twitter misinterpreting data and then lying about it and changing it, backpedaling, being slippery, and then various videos he's made on me. I don't know, like what, 10 videos or so on his channel that he's made about me now. It's getting kind of ridiculous. And of almost everything he says is misinterpreting what I'm saying or completely strawmanning me. I mean,
well, see, and
when he was
see, that's
criticizing
why I
me.
want to have y'all have the conversation though, because I feel like you can usually cut some of that out real quickly by saying I didn't say that, look at this, and then you can show him being like, I clearly didn't say this, you're saying I'm saying this, so what's going on here, like Sean, you know what I mean?
Right, and
Versus when
I'm
it's like a
sure
little bit more back and forth, it's harder to follow.
I'll probably get a chance to talk to him relatively soon, and that'll be great. But even like
Yeah.
even when I went, I know that we have to get to other callers, but even the last time when I went on the panel with him, and I was kind of like being a little bit like mean to him or whatever, he was claiming that like he was told not to be mean to me beforehand or something. Like I have no idea who said that. I reached out to the mods and asked, did any of you guys say this? And none of them did. So it's just like
Oh,
I don't know, man. I don't trust the guy at all, and I don't know. I'm hesitant to engage with someone like that.
okay. Well, see, actually, I didn't even know. I'm not gonna lie, I am a little bit more of his fan, so I just assumed that was like a precondition, either like the mods to make it less tense or something you asked for. But if that's
No,
true, that
you
definitely
can literally ask Doobie. Beforehand, I said to prioritize the haters. I never tell people to go
Yep.
soft on me ahead of time. That is so not like me.
okay.
Yep, that
Well,
is
okay.
true. I
All right.
can
Well,
verify. And what I'm actually curious about is I know there are a lot of right wingers in this voice channel right now who are not asking debating questions because maybe they're afraid of something.
So I just want to clarify, specifically when it comes to two consenting adults of age, are you okay with them being married? If so, what's your rationale for that?
Am I okay with two consenting adults getting married?
Yes.
Yes. Why wouldn't I be? You mean like gay? Like am I okay with gay marriage?
Well, I just want to understand if it's like specifically with gay marriage, because let me add on to that. So specifically with like brothers and sisters, right? Incest. A lot of people make the argument that gay marriage is okay because I believe that two consenting adults of age legally over 18,
Mhm.
should be able to marry each other, right? I don't see why it's your business, right? And I also hear people say, brothers and sisters, two consenting adults of age, again, apply that the same way. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on when it comes to specifically incest? Do you agree with that logic?
I mean, I've heard like Destiny's thing on that about. I mean, I guess you could consider if it were two consenting adults and it was incest. It's gross, but it's I guess would be like a morally neutral act at the end of the day. Um, I mean, I think that that's gross, but I don't think as if there was no coercion there, then it would technically be a morally neutral thing.
So I would have to push back a little bit on that because if you look at a lot of the offspring that they produce, brothers and sisters,
Well, that's
more likely.
offspring. You're right. That would be bad because then you're bringing a third party into it. If there was no reproduction, though, then it would technically be a morally neutral thing. It's gross as fuck, but it's like you can't actually prescribe like a moral wrong to it necessarily.
Well, I mean that's fine, but I'm just saying if you're gonna make it legal, right, for brothers and sisters to marry each other, I mean, more often than not, you're also incentivizing them to have kids, wouldn't you say?
I mean, I don't know if we would necessarily make that legal or not. I don't know. I know that generally speaking, you can't just prescribe like a moral to incest, but when it comes down to actually whether or not it should be legal, um, I guess I'd have to look into it more. I know though, no, I don't think that that would necessarily incentivize people to have kids. But I could see there being an issue, I guess, with if it were legalized and coming across as encouraging, being encouraged, then we could have a potential risk there for pregnancy. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm not trying to fucking argue in favor of incest. I'm just saying that, like, generally it seems to be a morally neutral thing. But yeah, I don't know. I think that I would have to look in to see how the legality plays in with some of those incentives there. But if that were a risk, then I would have to rethink that position for sure.
Right, because I'm just trying to see where you are, right? Because I see the position. Me personally, I think homosexuality is just as bad as incest, and I think it's disgusting. And I just disagree with both of it. But when I'm not saying you, but when I hear people say homosexuality is okay, it's understandable, why people would love each other. But then, as you kind of, showed earlier, your disgust for incest, I just find it very strange because these are two loving, consenting adults of
But
age.
they're also two loving, consenting adults who are related. That is kind of gross, right? That's different than two loving, consenting adults who are not related getting married. Like, there's a pretty big difference there.
Wait, but if there's like no like specific like obviously grooming, right? If that's like found, right, obviously, and let's just say they have like a bachelor's degree and they're 26 and they put down a mortgage, whatever, right? Yeah, then like by your logic, by your standard, right? What would be the issue? It seems like you're getting
with
revolted
incest
for yeah.
I guess nothing, but I don't know what you're really getting at here.
Well, what I'm getting at here is that, you seem to be holding incest and, gay marriage at a different
No,
level
I'm
when I
not.
think,
I'm literally not. I think that you want me to be, but I'm not. I think that it's gross. But you know what? I also think anal sex is gross. But I'm not against gay marriage for that. It doesn't matter what I think is gross or not. It matters what's morally right and what isn't. And technically speaking, it is a morally neutral act. Same with gay marriage. So I would really like to know why you're against gay marriage more than anything. Like, we're not really seeing a big fucking push for like incest relationships or whatever, but like, it seems that gay people who are attracted to the same sex, have existed throughout history, right? And it seems like that's a pretty real thing, and there's a large group of people that feel that way.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good question. And to answer your question, I would also apply this with, the results of actions, right? So two loving, consenting adults, brothers and sisters, having a kid, right? Has genetic abnormalities, right? Which is, a bad thing. But if you have two homosexual couples, even if you consider sexual education, their STDs are actually still much more higher than straight couples on average. And I would say, when you
Don't you
have
think
society
don't you think that's their business? If their STD
well, don't you think
rates are
don't you
higher?
think it's their business for their kids to, for them to have those kids? Don't you think it's their business? Why do you have a say in that?
Because that kid would be genetically like deficient and have all kinds of issues, and you would be like bringing a third party into that. When we're talking about two consenting adults having sex, the reason that, I mean, it's again, I do think this is a little like gross personally, but like, if you're like the anus has a much like a thinner layer of skin, so it's much easier to spread disease and get a disease when engaging in anal sex. You could literally make the same exact argument for straight couples that engage in anal sex as well. This is, if anything, something with anal sex which could be ameliorated by more frequent testing and everything else. Again, things that we could change even on like a somewhat on a social level. So I'm not sure how you could say like an increased risk of STDs means that it's, I guess, immoral.
What I'm saying, if you account for education, if you account for testing, right? It still shows that, again, gay people are still gonna have higher STDs on average. So it seems that there's a perversion with
Even if I were to
homosexuals
grant
compared
that,
to, heterosexuals.
so are you against the straight couples engaging in anal sex?
Yeah, I think that's disgusting. I think it's
Why?
gross.
But why? Like,
Well,
you're literally just saying, I think
I mean,
it's
for one,
gross. Like, you're not really making any
for
arguments.
one, yeah. So for starters, there's actually been many examples of people, and I don't want to be NSFW, but tearing each other's assholes and bleeding,
So
because of
wait, wait,
this,
wait. Okay, so what?
sexual
So what? That doesn't matter. I could just as easily tell you a bunch of stories about a guy's dick that was too big and tore a woman's vagina. Like you could literally make the exact same argument. This is not a moral argument by any means. You're saying because there could be some complications, it might be bad. What?
Well, that's just one of the examples, right? You were asking me why do I think anal sex is bad, and it's not necessarily that. Well, inherently anal sex obviously I would say is bad, but I'm saying there's a difference between how homosexuals engage and how heterosexuals engage. I mean, if you disagree
In
with Matt,
sex?
I mean, I don't know how to. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
of course,
So
yes,
heterosexual.
duh. So what? Again, this is like this. You're saying that they engage in sex differently. Of course they do.
Well, not just that. Not just that though. Like I could go on with how many partners they have on average. I mean, I can give other
Really?
examples, right? The issue, yeah, the homosexuals have more partners on average than heterosexuals.
Again, I'm not sure what this means. Are you trying to make a
It
genetic
means that they're
argument
more.
here? Are you trying to say that they're genetically more promiscuous or something?
Well, I'm just saying that they are. Yes, I mean I wouldn't say I'm genetic argument, but I would say more so that homosexuals are just the
Okay,
action
wait.
or the homosexual lifestyle.
So if it's not genetic, right, then the only other option would mean that it's a social issue. So if it's a social issue, then wouldn't it make sense to change some of those circumstances? So for example, gay people are less likely to get tested for STDs. Now, not so much anymore, but still to a degree, and a lot of that is because of the potential of experiencing homophobia. Thankfully that we have gotten a little bit better with that, but especially in the past, we would see higher STD rates among gay people because they were afraid essentially to go in because let's say you get confirmed to have AIDS, right? That would essentially be outing you more or less because it was so socially stigmatized. So arguably by helping to like lessen the stigma around being gay and everything else, you'd actually be playing a role in decreasing STD rates as well. So I'm like people get STDs, you could just as easily make arguments. I mean, if you want to look at it, one more thing really quick. If you want to look at it on a global level, for example, then you would see that it's actually, I know it's men in another country. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know that it's like these straight heterosexual men that actually on a global scale have the most sexual partners on average.
Yeah. So again, I'm not saying you can't engage in actions to lower STDs. All these studies that show it's dropped STDs. I agree. What I'm referencing here is that there's an underlying issue. It's the homosexual lifestyle, and I'm attributing this right of your inconsistency with allowing brothers and sisters to have babies and respect their personal freedoms. I think it's
No,
very
that's not a
inconsistent,
personal
and I
freedom.
think it's
This is
double standard.
this is such a disingenuous framing. Is it a violation of my personal freedoms or of like my neighbor's personal freedoms if Child Protective Services takes their kid away after they're beating their kid? Like this doesn't mean anything. What you're saying right now
Well, you're
is
comparing someone's beating their kid to them, loving each other and just having kids. For example, right? Let me give you a good example. You have people that I don't want to use the R word, right? But let's just say they're special, right? They're special. They have kids, right? Would you, by your logic, would you be against them having kids? Are you gonna stop them from having kids now?
No, but that's also a little bit different here because what we're talking about with incest is
Why?
the potential. Because what we're talking about with incest is something that's like it could be avoided for one. Second of all, it's a little bit disingenuous still to frame incest to someone's sexual orientation. As far as I know, I don't think that there's a sexual orientation when it comes to incest. I mean, that would literally be people choosing to engage in something purely like because they wanted to, I guess. Whereas when we're talking about gay people, we're looking at an actual sexual orientation. So this entire, like the framing of this argument is so fucking out there and weird. And you still, by the way, haven't told me why you think it's bad to be gay. All you've said is, well, higher STD rates, which you acknowledge socially, like social factors play a role in that. So like, why is it bad to be gay then? The homosexual lifestyle?
Yeah.
What does this
As I
mean?
referenced, as I referenced earlier, even if you account for, quote unquote, homophobia or not enough resources, for homosexuals to engage in their actions, right? You still see that on average, homosexuals still have higher STDs
Well,
than
of course.
heterosexuals.
Yeah, that's because the way they
Yeah.
engage in sex puts them at a higher risk to that. Yeah, sure.
Wait, but by your logic, if they're using condoms, like, what's the issue?
No,
By your
because
logic.
also gay people engage in this like other kind of sexual act. I think it's called like topping or something, where like they'll do like anal sex and then like oral sex, which raises your risk of getting an STD even higher. There are all kinds of different ways that they engage in sex that could raise their
Yeah,
risk. But this
which
still
could
doesn't prove
advise
anything. Like this
against it.
could. But so you want to basically. So what would this look like? Legislating people's sexual life? Like how? What would this look like?
Yeah, so it's very, I don't want to be, legalistic, right, about the law, but I would say for starters, just disincentivizing it. So for example, Pride promoting, homosexuality, that funded.
So your whole
I would
reason
also
for
say,
being against gay
Burger for
people,
All.
your whole reason for being against gay people is because they sometimes have higher rates of STDs. Am I clear on that? That's it? That's the only reason why?
No, that's not the only reason, as I referenced earlier.
Okay.
It's not just, STDs, gay people bad, right? It's
Or
because,
what is
again,
it?
as I stated earlier, their lifestyle perpetuates, what you would consider a negative outcome, more sexual partners, right? Like as you said, right, topping, whatever, right? Just having anal sex, right, isn't just gonna like have high STDs. Kissing a whole bunch of people on the mouth, just having a whole bunch of people as your partners, right, also contributes to that, right? And again, we don't see this. I don't want to say
You don't think
we don't really
you
see.
don't think the risk of being more promiscuous could be fixed via like social change? Like for example, like if
that's the
people
social
aren't
change
like
I want to do.
like if people aren't
Yeah,
accepted, for example,
disincentivizing homosexuality. Yeah.
so people aren't like accepted by their family, for example, they're actually more likely to engage in promiscuous behavior. Don't you think that we could be pushing for more acceptance of gay people so they don't sometimes gravitate towards that lifestyle?
Well, I mean, I literally told you before, even for
Oh, your mic's getting fucked up.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just your mic's messed up.
Is that all right?
I think
Let
so.
me even join one more time. That's good?
I think so.
There we go. Is that good?
We've got just we've got like a lot of people still waiting.
So why don't we move on to the next caller then? Hey man, I really appreciate you coming on. All right.
Thanks for talking to you. Have a good one, bro.
I heard quite a lot in your discussion, and there were some things which I'd like to just mention briefly. I have an interesting question, but these things need to be mentioned. Is that don't like drag yourself through the discussions with the heterosexual, because a heterosexual species will have a defense mechanism, and so they will have natural revulsion towards homosexuality or transgenderism and so on and so forth. It's just defense mechanism. Don't really go much into it, and they're mostly unaware. It's part of the survival instinct, so it's typical. Just
Are you saying that homophobes have a genetic disposition to being homophobic?
A species that is propagating itself heterosexually will inevitably have a revulsion towards something which is considered opposing to that, so to speak, process.
Maybe, but I mean, we can literally look on like an evolutionary level and see gay, like animals engaging in gay behavior, right? So not really.
Yes,
like
yes,
homophobia is
that is
actually
the
more
case.
specific to humans than anything else.
Yes, of course it is specific to humans, but we are also animals, and to ignore that part, to ignore the influence of biology upon our psychological predispositions towards certain phenomena is not, how to say, unwarranted. Anyhow,
But it
the point
could be.
being is
Couldn't
that
you just as easily? What about people that might have like, I don't know, some like uncontrollable urge to like rape people or something? That wouldn't justify that, right?
No, that can be just one of the manifestations of desire to procreate without being able to secure more stable conditions to
Why would
perform
your
that.
desire to procreate be accompanied by revulsion towards gay people? How do gay people existing have anything to do with your ability to procreate?
Exactly, it is because you share environment with them, and because you share environment, you share resources in that environment.
Then why do we not
And
see
so
this in any
environment,
other form of nature besides in humans?
No, you do see it in other forms of nature. The point here is that
Do
the
you though?
context
Do
is
you?
of
Because I can point
not
you to over
humanity.
1,500 species,
You would
animal
like to
species.
mention 1,100 species that do that?
I can literally point you to an article that goes over thousands of different species that have
I would really like
acted in
that. I would really
homosexual
like that.
behavior. Lions, for example, they will literally have gay sex to strengthen the the vibe. Sorry, I saw someone in my fucking chat
Okay,
to
okay,
strengthen the bond of their pride of the pride. So
okay.
this is a very common
Does
thing that
that
happens in.
preclude them? Does that preclude them from that? Does not make them homosexuals, though. Can make them bisexual because there's other functions to penetrative sex with same sex. How to
But
say?
it's homosexual behavior. It's the
Subjective
opposite of
species.
repulsion. It's the
No, it's not
opposite of it.
homosexual behavior. I would say it's bisexual rather than homosexual, especially if it
Okay,
about
but you still,
hierarchical
even if it was
functions.
bisexual, it's the opposite of revulsion. You're arguing that there's a genetic reason that, like, you are revulsed
That
by
can
gay
be
people. When
my claim is that the defense mechanism, the psychological predisposition towards revulsion on a basic level, especially for people who are purely heterosexual, and especially in human case. All right, because if we weren't, we would not have the next generation. Simple as. And
so
the
so
reason for that
what you're doing right now is
is
arguably an appeal to.
specifically
It's actually a fallacy, which is the appeal to
to nature.
nature.
Is that
Yes.
what you're claiming?
Yep.
I wouldn't say it's a fallacy because it's quite understood. I just don't see how you just keep engaging with people who try to just just load you with exactly that, with that revulsion, and they cannot explain it themselves. And I just witnessed it with the guy before, and just
Do
spending
you have
time
revulsion
going in
towards gay
circles.
people?
I have not revulsion towards gay people.
Are like you cool with gay people then?
No, first of all, if you say in earlier age, that could be the case. But then, if I thought about it, and as long as they don't in any way impede my capacity to promote myself and my genes in the environment, I don't care. Simple as.
So then why are you justifying people that do care?
Who said I'm justifying? I told you not to spend time with it. Don't twist my words, please.
Did you not just try to make the argument that people that are homophobic have a genetic reason for being homophobic, more or less?
Yes, that is what I said.
So you're making that is an appeal to nature. We're not slaves to evolution, and you also realize that just if something is
We're not slaves to evolution. Okay, how about you
we're
try
not
not to eat for a week,
that
or not to drink for 3 days?
what?
Try not to sleep.
There's
Try not to
something.
sleep.
Hold on.
Excuse me.
Try not to breathe for a
Appeal
week.
to
Try not
nature.
to. Are you kidding me
Exactly.
right now?
Is it not appeal to nature? Excuse me. Am I doing appeal to nature by telling you not to breathe for a week?
Oh, buddy, that was a really bad faith comparison. Okay, so listen, we don't define morals based on what is and is not natural. Whether it's natural for people to be repulsed by gay people, I don't even give a fuck because it's still wrong. We don't determine whether something's morally right based on if we witness it in nature or if it is natural or not. For example, we would all agree, at least I hope, that rape is very, very bad. But in nature, it's quite common. Animals rape each other all the time. They don't ask for consent. They're trying to spread their seed. It would be ludicrous to assume or to say that it's okay for humans to rape because it's natural. We don't determine our morals based on what is and is not natural. Does that make sense?
Ellie?
Did I steamroll him? I'm so okay.
Oh, no. I was muted. That was what it was. No, I'll tell a false analogy. Humans don't share the same level of consciousness as animals, so I would not really agree to that. But again, how much of an appeal to nature is that? Because you can say false equivalence when I'm mentioning ability to breathe or to not breathe or to
There are
not
some
eat,
things that
and being
obviously we
victims of
have to do
evolution.
because they're natural, my dude.
Just
But
because
being
some things are
homophobic is
less
not one of
apparent,
those things. All right?
just
This is a
because
bizarre
just
claim. And
because
Even though you're
This is not a
saying
bizarre claim.
no, even though
This
you're
was not
saying
claim.
even though you're saying that you don't have a problem with gay people, you're more or less playing defense for homophobes, saying they can't help it. They have a genetic reason for whatever. Dude, get out of here, man. Come
Yes.
on.
Yes, we can all attribute it to just social reasoning.
Yeah.
But if you ignore the reasons for psychological motivations from biological reasons, and call it appeal to nature, you will not go far with it ever.
There are biological components to virtually everything we do, but again, that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. So, all right.
I just
I appreciate the
send me
talk,
that
dude.
article.
I appreciate the
Nick,
combo.
Don't run away. Don't run away.
I'm not
There's a lot of-
I'm not running away, buddy. I feel like we've covered all of our
You are
bases and we have a
running
lot
away.
of people waiting,
You
okay?
jumped on the question. Jumped on the
Kelly.
question.
Other people, okay? Thank you for your
Sure,
question. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Hey, Hunter, how's it going?
Going good.
You mentioned before that you wouldn't debate Nick Fuentes now, right?
Yeah.
And that's because you're not really armed enough, is that right?
Not even that, but it would just, I know that it's going to take a lot of research. I'm going to have to look into like so many different variables, and
So you could say you're conceding that he's just probably right and you're wrong?
no, I'm not conceding that he's right and that I'm wrong. I'm conceding that he is very well versed in misinformation, so it might take a long time for me to sort through
what?
all that beforehand.
Well, could you say what misinformation?
Has he denied the Holocaust or said that maybe it wasn't actually 6 million?
Well, he joked about it, but he didn't deny
Do you
it.
think that he really believes that?
That it's a joke?
Do you
Like,
think that
he
when
joked-
do you think that when somebody holds beliefs, right, that are like, okay, why don't you tell me? Because it's obvious that you're a Nick Fuentes fan. So why don't you tell me? Does he talk about maybe making America stay majority white?
Oh, I can't get off the fact that you think that he's serious about the Holocaust being a hoax.
Wait.
Like,
I'm trying to get to this. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you please answer that question? Does he think the majority of the country should stay white?
I think the majority of America should be the founding stock. Yeah, of the founding stock.
What do you mean of the founding what?
The founding stock.
What
Like
is
descendants of the founding stock. If you replace your country with a bunch of foreigners or, other
No,
national-
America was originally founded for Anglo-Saxons. That ethnicity doesn't even exist anymore. It wasn't even created necessarily for
Right.
white people or the way that we understand what it means to be white today. So
What about
no, I completely
about
reject that.
Europeans with the founding stock?
What about Europeans?
Yeah. They settled that country.
America has already undergone a bunch of multiculturalism, and we're the strongest country in the world.
Yeah, I would have to disagree. I think it's a bit of a disaster.
But I know you do, but let's actually go back a little bit back to what I was saying before. So since he obviously believes the majority of the country should be white, when he holds views like that, right, when he holds white nationalist beliefs, and then he has other overlap with neo-Nazi beliefs as well, for example, trying to justify the violence that happened on January 6th, I think he was even encouraging people to riot and raid the Capitol.
He said people should turn up and protest peacefully, just like the president did.
I saw something very different than that, but okay. Either way, when someone like that holds those views, I don't think it's very fair for when they then make jokes about the Holocaust not happening, or maybe there not being 6 million Jews. Then all of a sudden it has a different implementation. Do you understand? I laugh, my dude, but that's not how humor works, because Nick Fuentes is making jokes to mask certain beliefs so that dumb fucks like you can then get up here and say, oh, oi, he was just joking, lol. When in reality, it's very obvious that he holds white nationalist beliefs, and then when that overlaps with Holocaust denial jokes, it has a little bit of a different connotation there.
Dude, you're fucked in the head.
Okay.
Well,
you're British.
Oh shit. Yeah, I was a little harsh.
Shots fired.
My question is, what is your position on authoritarian groups like Antifa beating journalists like Andy Ngo in the street and calling for his death constantly on Twitter, and them not being subject to the same type of censorship that a right-wing person would for saying they, you know, something that a trans or gay person finds, you know, below the pale
It
or
would
above the
really,
pale.
yeah, it would really depend on you know, if what Andy No was saying was true, because Andy No has
But it
been
is true.
Andy No has
They've
been
been-
known to lie like a lot. He's even collaborated with other I think it was far right neo-Nazi groups to actually instigate violence so that
When you say far right, neo-Nazi groups, are you talking about like the Proud Boys? Now, I'm not a supporter of things like the Proud Boys.
Well, I'm still trying to.
I'm not right wing like
I don't
that.
support calls for violence at all. But
Okay,
I would
so
just
you're
have.
against Antifa then.
I would be against Antifa calling for Andy No to be attacked. Yes.
Okay, so you don't agree when just recently when they beat him, you know, really bad and chased him down and had him locked. So
I'd want to know
you
the full
see-
story, of course, because I don't trust Andy No's
full-
interpretation of it. But if he's being
He's a
beat,
tiny little fat Asian man.
but if he was
and
beaten up
they
by
chased-
Antifa, then that would be very bad, and I would be against that. Yes.
He was totally okay. All right. So why do you? What about the censorship thing? Is the censorship of right-wing personalities somehow justified, while Antifa can? People associated with Antifa can.
Did Antifa say that on
They-
Twitter?
Yeah, they say it on Twitter, like all over the place. If you're looking for it, it's everywhere.
Let's see.
So you denounce Antifa, then, is what you're saying?
I would denounce this behavior 100%. Yeah.
Okay, all right. That's and the censorship thing, you have no problem with that. I'm of the mind that censorship is completely and always unjustified, other than calls to violence. So, like,
What about child
even if
porn?
somebody's child porn is against the non-aggression principle. So absolutely, child porn should be censored. Like that's absurd.
So I'm
like,
looking and I'm
no
not
child-
really. I don't see too much about like where this is being said on Twitter. If this was being said on Twitter, then that tweet should be taken down. If it's a call to violence, that would be against TOS 100%. When it comes to like are conservatives being banned on big tech, conservatives probably are being banned at disproportionate rates, but it's not because they're conservative. It's because they're breaking the rules more frequently.
So you're kind of a libertarian when it comes to the private company thing, and you don't think they should be subject to the laws of the government that they
What
of
laws?
the country that they're operating in.
Wait, what laws are they not following?
Freedom of speech. If you're not
So
breaking,
do you realize that
if you're
freedom of
not-
speech is in the Constitution refers to the government cannot infringe on your speech. It has
Yes,
nothing to
I
do with
get
private
that.
businesses.
Okay. So you do that, you do make that distinction,
Of
like
course.
like a
Yes.
libertarian.
I'm a
I don't.
capitalist.
I
Yes, I
personally-
recognize private property. Yeah.
I don't agree. I think that they are the public square these days, whereas the public square used to be a actual physical thing.
Mhm.
Now it happens on the internet, and
Even the public
whether
squares
they
back
like
in the
it,
day,
whether they
even in the public squares back in the day, like some people could be banned for like disturbing the peace, for example, right? So like these big tech companies, of course they're removing far right individuals because they're ultimately hurting the company's end goal, which is to make more money. If you get on a social media platform as a trans person or as a gay person and you're bombarded by a bunch of conservatives calling for your death or saying that you're a degenerate, subhuman, disgusting piece of shit or whatever, then you're most likely not going to want to stick around on that platform, right?
calling for their death, and like I don't agree. I'm totally for trans people to do whatever they want as long as they're adults. You know what I'm saying? Once you're an adult, do whatever you like with your body. That's totally up to you. Who you choose to have sex with is totally up to you. None of my business, and it doesn't bother me.
Okay.
But there's a difference between calling for their death and calling them a degenerate. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't
there is,
agree.
you're right, and they're both
I don't-
equally
I
bad.
don't agree.
I mean, not
I don't
equally bad, but
agree.
they're both very bad.
They're definitely not equally bad.
You're right, they're not
I
equally
don't
bad. That
think-
was a misspeak, but
I
they
don't
are
think-
they
I
are
don't-
both bad.
While I don't agree with what they're saying, I don't think that their speech should be shut down because they feel a certain way.
I
That's my
recognize that,
position.
but your version, like your idea, would actually like be a detriment to like the business, right? To like Twitter and Facebook and everything
wouldn't.
else. Yeah, because you're saying pretty much unless it's like child porn or calls to violence, censorship
Right.
on any format is wrong.
Is wrong. Yes.
So let me ask you this:
100%.
would you be okay with? Would you extend that to like a physical business as well?
Yeah. When the bake the cake thing.
So what would
happened,
happen if you were in a
I thought,
well, what would
I
happen if
totally
you were in a
thought it was
let's say
cake.
you're let's say you're at a restaurant, okay, and some guy walks in and he's like screaming about like politics, maybe he's screaming about like the end times or something, and he's covered in like feces. He's not breaking
That's
any
a-
laws. He's not being violent. Would they have the right to ban him then?
There's a disturbing the peace law. Absolutely.
So
there is.
couldn't you
That's
disturb the wait? So couldn't you disturb the peace on a tech platform as well?
No, because you can block people. You can avoid that content.
So you don't think that
It's
if a
very
trans
simple.
person gets on a Twitter, you don't think if a trans person gets on Twitter and they're seeing multiple different posts, not all posts maybe that they can't all just block really quickly, multiple different posts all the times flashing up about how trans people are bad, they're degenerate, whatever, you don't think that that might make some trans people and gay people leave the platform and ultimately hurt the goal of the company, which is to get as many people as possible on their platform? Like, what do you think would happen if there was a guy covered in shit in a restaurant, right? And then they couldn't ask them to leave. What do you think would happen then? Other people
No,
would.
they absolutely should be able to ask them to leave, but that's not discriminatory because he's deliberately being a disturbance. Whereas somebody expressing an opinion that
It depends
isn't
what that opinion is, right?
No, that's
There's a
not the
lot of people
opinion.
that express
Walking
opinions on
into
big tech all the time.
walking
Look at
into-
Ben Shapiro. Look at
walking-
PragerU. These guys express these opinions about trans people all the fucking time. But if you're
Yeah,
actually
and
going
there's
up there
nothing-
calling them degenerate or subhuman or something like that, that is a violation of TOS.
Subhuman is different than calling someone a degenerate. You can call somebody who's against trans people a degenerate for having that thought, like for being that type of a person.
I agree that just different
which is
opinions
my-
shouldn't be banned, but we're not talking about different opinions. We're literally talking about disturbing the peace here. And it makes sense that these companies are going to want to ban some people that are being extreme or disturbing the peace because it's ultimately hurting their profit margins, right? So this idea that like there should just be this
profit margin.
it absolutely does. Look what happened to 4chan, my dude. Look what happened to 4chan where they had no TOS. You know, actually, that's not even true. 4chan does actually have a TOS, but barely. And look what happened. It became nothing but a Nazi hotbed because everybody left except for Nazis, the people that get banned on other tech
You think quarantining these people you disagree with is a much better
What?
idea. Well, you're quarantining them to their own bubble. You're absolutely quarantining them to their own bubble to just have this circular logic thing continue to go on. And the only way to defeat bad ideas is with good ideas. Like that's literally, and the only way to pull people back.
I can partially
those
agree with that,
experience-
but that doesn't mean that that bad idea needs to be platformed on a private company's platform. And again, that
I hate
would
this libertarian argument. It's
okay,
so-
well, I'm sorry that you don't like that
nonsense.
private companies can do what they want to do, but I'm not really sure what your end goal is. Your ultimate goal is for there to just be like, it would be unattainable for these companies. They wouldn't be able to be successful the way that they are now
Absolutely
if they
would.
continue to have these
Why on
far-right
YouTube?
morons that were able to broadcast their hate everywhere.
Let me say this. Why on YouTube there are videos that the person is demonetized, but they still run ads on those videos. Right? So basically what that is those companies have no problem running their ads on those videos.
What does this have to do with censorship?
That has everything to do with censorship. They're saying that they can't get the money from the advertisers because of these.
That you have
because
this
of people
all wrong, my
expressing
dude.
These views.
No,
How is
I'm
that the- that's
because
the
I am
exact
literally
argument.
because I'm literally a YouTuber for my job. I know exactly what you're talking about. They're not saying that they're going to keep the revenue if your video gets demonetized. If your video gets demonetized, you still usually make a little bit of revenue. It's just not very much because you're running limited ads. What they're saying is that they're going to still run ads on channels that aren't in the partner program because they might be too small or whatever. There's various different reasons why they might not be in the partner program. This has nothing to do with them demonetizing your videos, saying that they're not safe for ads and then still taking money or something like that. And again,
that's pretty disingenuous. I gotta say, that's
how is that disingenuous? That is literally how the policy works.
I don't care what they actually say because they are always changing the goalposts. Like people aren't making.
This is what I mean. This is why it's so important to look at data. Like if you actually looked at like the data collection on YouTube and saw how the algorithm worked, like the algorithm more or less promotes left and right wing content at almost like identical rates. Like there's no algorithmic bias here.
No, there's a left wing bias against anything right of Obama.
Okay, well, I don't think.
Yeah. All right.
This isn't going anywhere.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
This isn't going anywhere, and that's because it's such a, like, the fact that you think that is happening is actually proof that it's not, because more or less you probably heard those ideas from one of these crazy people like PragerU or Ben Shapiro or whatever that constantly spread these lies about censorship, because at the end of the day they profit from it.